One of the best entry-level ADVs is back and better than ever. And we finally have it here on MotoDeal. This is the 2024 Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. I'm Gino Rufino. It's time to go beyond the ride. Now, the previous generation Himalayan was beloved by many, in fact, myself included, especially after I was able to test it out in, well, the Himalayas. And the new generation kind of builds on that legacy as an accessible, durable, versatile adventure touring bike. Still known for its simplicity and durability, with a bunch of new upgrades that, in my opinion, make it more usable, but still with the go-anywhere feel of the previous generation Himalayan. It's powered by a new 452cc water-cooled single-cylinder engine with dual overhead cams that punches out 39.5 horsepower at 8,000 RPM and 40 Nm of torque at 5,500 RPM. This has got a 6-speed gearbox, which is one more than the previous generation and much appreciated, by the way. The suspension is much better as well. For the front, you get Showa 43mm upside-down forks with 200mm of travel. For the rear, you get a monoshock with 180mm of travel. You get bi-brake calipers for its stopping power, and you can also turn off the rear ABS if you're gonna go off-road. Now, the ground clearance has been improved to 230mm, while the seat height is still more or less 800mm. Now, the bike is lighter than the previous gen. This has a 195kg curb weight, and the fuel tank capacity is still 15 liters. For the wheels and tires, well, you get 21 in the front, 17 for the rear. The rear is also bigger than or thicker than that of the previous generation. This is 140, while the previous generation was 120. And despite being spoke wheels, well, they're also tubeless, which I appreciate. So let's talk about the aesthetics. I actually really like it. I think it looks fantastic. It looks so much better than the old one. The old one, I was kind of, I thought it was whatever, but this, it looks good. I think it really, really does look good. It's got this sort of old school vibe to it, but still with some nice modern touches. It looks proper, like a proper off-road machine, but still very tastefully done. And one of those more appreciated modern touches, LED lights all around. There was one point when we were in the Himalayas where it was starting to get dark and we couldn't see anything, and it was freezing cold because the headlights just were, well, I'm gonna say it, crap. But this, LED. So you also get this pretty cool dash that's, I think, looks pretty awesome because you can, change the way it looks. You can, be analog kono, and then you can be a little bit more digital. You can, of course, control the ride. By the way, there's riding modes with this Royal Enfield, which is, you don't really normally see that with the previous generation Himalayan or other REs. So I do appreciate this. You have, of course, eco, and then you have performance. You can change the look of the dash. It does take a while to get used to it. It's not the most intuitive, I guess, display. But, once you get used to it, it should be okay. But I do like the fact that they updated this. I think this is a great move by Royal Enfield for their, I guess this is their first digital display. So, you could expect this in the next, or the upcoming bikes of Royal Enfield. Oh, I'm sorry, Royal Enfield. But don't worry, because this bike already has crash guards, or somewhat. So the first point of contact, it's actually protecting the bike. So it's not as beefy as the previous generation Himalayan, but it will do the job for small drops like this, or more like laying it down.
But we didn't drop it.
But we didn't really drop it.
We found it like that. I'm kidding.
I got here and it was like this already. But keep in mind, with bikes like this, you are most likely going to fall at one point or another, especially if you're going to be taking it off-road. So,
If you're a beginner.
especially if you're a beginner or anytime you go off-road, expect to fall. And it's nice to know that the bike is protected right here. And by the way, since the bike is like this already, we may as well showcase the protection underneath. So something else that I did notice, because I went through this with my Tenere, is that it does lay kind of flat. And that becomes a little bit of an issue if you drop it multiple times when you're off-road, because it will be a little bit of an effort to bring it back up. If you notice, a lot of ADVs, it usually has a little bit of an angle. Like, for example, the GS is a big one, but the KTMs, the 790 Adventure, the tank kind of gives it a little bit of an angle, so it's easier to pick up. This is kind of flat. Where's the side stand? That's another thing. When you put the side stand down, look how deep it goes. It's kind of really deep. So when you're gonna go that way, you get on the bike, make sure to turn the handlebar just so that it's easier to get it upright. It does also have a center stand that it comes with, and something that I'm not really used to because none of my bikes have center stands, or nor do I even use the center stand on my scooter. But it's nice to have on an ADV because it's just safer to put it on the center stand, especially when you're out in the trail or in some off-road. It's just a little bit more balanced. And plus, of course, you can change the tire easier, clean the chain easier, so on and so forth, if you have the center stand. It is added weight though. So let's talk about the riding position. It is quite upright, pretty much the same as the old generation. I think the pegs might be a little bit more rear set compared to the previous generation RE, but not by much. Not by much at all. This is still a very comfortable stance to be in for long rides and, you know, just taking it off-road. This is pretty standard. And if you need to stand up, which you probably do, you first of all take off the rubber on the foot pegs. And while you're doing that, yeah, pretty good position to be in as well. Handlebars are high enough that you're not too forward, and you can, you know, do all that maneuvering when you're standing on the foot pegs. So let's do a quick sound test, shall we? Okay, Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. Well, I mean, I think I said it already. I like this bike a whole lot more than I do the previous generation Hima. And you know, the TFT screen is a nice touch to it, I have to say. Of course, the riding modes is also a welcome addition. Ride by wire, much appreciated. I like it. I really do like the bike. It's nice and comfy. The 21-inch front. Long travel suspension, higher ground clearance. You know, it's really built for harsh, uneven terrain. It's not a high-speed machine, and it doesn't claim to be one, but it handles rugged off-road trails better than most in its class, as it should, because this is a bike that most people use when they try and conquer the Himalayas. Now, because it's got 6 gears now, it's not as slow as the old Hima. Yes, you'll still feel the vibrations of the single, especially at higher speeds, but that's to be expected. Now, I did join the Royal Enfield One Ride last week, where almost 200 riders from Luzon joined on a semi-long ride with lots of highway, some baby twisties, and some busted roads. And the bike handled all of that pretty well. On the highway, yes, it's not crazy fast, but it can get up to highway speeds with no issues. It's actually not so bad. And especially if you don't want to break any laws, this is actually just fine, if you ask me. It's decent as well in the city. It's got a good turning radius and you can manage your way through Manila traffic easier than most ADVs. Now, it can be used as a daily ride, but it still might be a little bit heavy for smaller riders out there. But you know, for if you've got a little bit more experience riding in the city through traffic, should not be an issue with this bike. Now, clearly the bike is designed really more for off-road. It's got a very torquey engine and it's, you know, extremely forgiving at lower speeds. You know, there are some ADVs out there at lower speeds. It feels like you're gonna stall, but this is, it's happy. It's happy to crawl when you're going through some rough patches on off-road. It should be pretty okay for that. Now, the obvious competition, all right, clearly it is the CFMOTO MT450. I mean, the two of these, you know, this and that is going to be it's a battle royale between these two. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath, I think. The MT of CFMOTO has sold really well in the Philippines ever since the global launch earlier this year, and this came out a little bit later. And I think it's actually good competition. I think that it's almost NMAX versus PCX. It is almost, you know, Lakers versus Celtics. This is going to be a good rivalry. I admit, before I got on the RE, this bike, I actually thought I was going to like the MT a whole lot more. I admit that. But after using this bike for about a week or so, I don't think it's that far anymore. I think it's actually a lot closer than I had anticipated. And I'm a little bit shocked, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit shocked that this bike has surpassed my expectations for it. It's so much so that we need to do a comparo between this and the CFMOTO MT to find out which one really will come out on top. It's going to be close. I don't think it's as clear as day than I originally had thought. So intermediate riders would have a lot of fun with this bike. Some beginners should be able to handle it too. Even experienced riders out there who want, you know, a simpler bike to use for, you know, for their off-road adventures, I think this is going to be a good choice. I really do. I mean, it's a little bit heavy, but you're not going to try and, you know, jump this bike or anything like that. If you want to go on some trails, if you want to be on the highway, especially here in the Philippines, right? Sometimes you need to go through the highway in order to get to the trails. And this is a bike that is actually really good for that. Because, well, in the Philippines, we have that expressway, the 400cc expressway limit. And, well, clearly this is above that. So you can definitely get on trails that are further out than from where you live if you have to get on the highway. It's a utility bike. It's a bike that that is not flashy, right? It's not supposed to be. It's something that but that's part of the charm of the Himalayan. And I think it's a bike that if done well, could be really, you know, could sell a lot here in the Philippines. But they do have to market it a little bit more, if you ask me. And now, since Royal Enfield is under new management, I know they need to still get their footing, and it's still going to take, you know, it's not going to be as quick to really market the bike. But in all honesty, when people try it, I mean, people just look at it, and I think people will like it already because aesthetically, I think it looks good. And when people try it, I think they're going to actually really enjoy it. And if the new management is able to get it out there to all the prospective buyers, I think this will definitely give the MT a run for its money. The 2024 Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 continues to give a unique experience in the ADV world. Yes, it's got updated tech, but it's still a bike that embodies the spirit of adventure in its simplest, most authentic form. For riders who value ruggedness, ease of use, and relative affordability, the 2024 Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 is an excellent choice, especially at a starting price tag of 359,000 Philippine pesos. That, my friends, is a pretty good deal. For more information about this bike and our MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. I'm Gene Rufino. Thanks for watching Beyond the Ride.